Hi, welcome to Alberni Thrive. Today we're going to be talking about the Alberni Valley's tourism potential. I'm Eric Plummer.
And I'm Elise LaRue. I find it's a really exciting time to be part of Port Alberni. Lots of really neat things happening right now.
There's this critical period that Port Alberni is going through right now where it's trying to rediscover itself. And there's a lot of discussion about what works for Port Alberni, what's great about Port Alberni, what needs to be changed in Port Alberni.
Hi, welcome to Alberni Thrive. So today we will be discussing tourism. Now, it's something that I find is an interesting topic in the area, generally speaking, because, I mean, look at our, from Port Alberni, you know, Tofino and Ucluelet. They've really had a great job at marketing that. And as we all know, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard of, you know, people, they ask, I say, have you been to Port Alberni? And oftentimes they say, oh, yeah, no, I don't think I have. And then I ask, have you been to Tofino? And they're like, oh, yeah. So it's really kind of interesting in my mind as to, you know, where is our future with tourism? Is it going to be part of our future, and how to get there? So I'm really excited to introduce our guest for today's show. We've got Pat Deacon, who is our Economic Development Manager for Port Alberni. And then we've got Ron Paulson, who is a counselor for the city of Port Alberni. And then we've got Trevor Coots, who is part of the Huu-ay-aht First Nation. He is part of the executive council, and he also holds the economic development portfolio. So thank you guys so much for being guests on this show. So first off, I'll talk with you, Pat. You're the economic development manager. Now, where does tourism fit in your portfolio?
It's taking an increasingly important role. When I first became the economic development manager for the city, tourism was handled by the Chamber of Commerce, and then it went to Alberni Valley Tourism. But increasingly, it's taking a part of my role, and I think this is a very exciting time.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
What I'm wondering about, and I think what a lot of people are wondering about, is how big of a place can tourism really play in our overall economy? You know, if you look a little bit to the west, you've got Tofino, which has an international reputation as a tourist attraction. It's driving that economy, but that community has less than 2,000 residents. Mm-hmm. Here we've got 25,000 residents in the valley. How big of a role can tourism really play, do you think?
Ron?
Okay. Well, I think tourism has to be a part of the puzzle in our local economy, and it's one piece of the puzzle. Are we there yet? No, we're probably not. Communities like Camel River are probably 25 years ahead of us in tourism development, and I mean, if you drive along the old highway into Camel River, you'll see what I mean with their foreshore development, accommodations, and those sorts of things. So. Yeah, we've got a ways to go, but I think it's an area for economic growth, and we need to pay some attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Trevor, you're here from the Huu-ay-aht, which basically is based in Bamfield. Now, I know that the Huu-ay-aht's got a lot of really interesting projects going on. How important is tourism for a lot of those projects?
For the projects recently, it's very important. I think we approach our economic development right now as we're a treaty nation from 2011. We're implementing our treaty right now, and we need to build a large sustainable economy for the community. So not only for Bamfield, but our surrounding area, including Anukla Village. And there's approaches to it where forestry and fisheries has always been a big part of our community. But we want to reduce our dependency on forestry, and it's not so much that we want to reduce our cut, but realize that relying on one industry is no longer viable for small communities. You need to have diverse revenues coming in. And tourism offers, I would say, a fairly immediate possibility for Huu-ay-aht. You know, to develop Huu-ay-aht tourism products is attainable, whereas when you go through trying to get into large industries or bring something like that into your community, it takes a long time. whereas we've had existing products for tourism. And I think the one thing that Port Alberni and Banfield have is we're an amazing place. It's not so much you have to shine it up and try to sell it. You have the product there already. It's just a matter of how do we package, how do we plan for it, and how do you bring it forward.
Now, I believe the Hawaiian bought a significant amount of property in Banfield this year. What are the Hawaiian's plans for tourism specifically? What are we looking at?
In the near future, our plan is to develop tourism in our area and to differentiate ourselves from surrounding areas, but also work and partner with our local communities. We have a lot going on here in Port Alberni, but for our immediate territory, one thing that we can do in order to compete with Ucluelet and Tofino, who are on the world the world table, is we're going to develop our tourism based around our culture. So we're going to develop a tourism strategy that's based around the Hawaiian experience, and it's something that can work very nicely, and we have the tools to do it because as First Nations, before settlers came, when we would traditionally hold potlatches, we would have surrounding communities come up and down the coast, and these potlatches would last for a long time, over days, if not over a week. And so the ability to host, accommodate, feed, and take care of people over a period of time has always been there for us. And so it's now just taking that from kind of our past to our future. So kind of goes with our slogan of H and Spirit Bond Our Mind, is taking that past and bringing it to the future. And so it's being able to be ambassadors to Hawaiian, as well as share the Hawaiian experience with locals. So.
An important point here is differentiation, marketing that area as a unique attraction. What's unique about Port Alberni to visitors?
I'll take that, and it's multifold, and I've had some experience. I was the Port Alberni coordinator for the BC Bike Race for the 2 years that it came through Port Alberni, and that gave us an opportunity to highlight our natural resources, our bike trails, our wilderness. That's certainly a huge attraction to a dynamic in the tourism end of things. I'm going to speak a little bit from personal experience and speak. I have many relatives in Alberta that come to visit in the summertime, and this last summer I took my brother and his wife, and we became tourists in our own town. And everything from the flowers on Johnson Road, they went, we don't have anything like this in Calgary. Mm-hmm. It was spectacularly beautiful. I took them down to the lighthouse, and there was a freighter tied up there. Mm-hmm. And my brother, being from the prairies, and they couldn't believe that they could almost reach out and touch a freighter. Mm-hmm. I took them down to Tyee Landing. This was just before it opened, and they were thoroughly intrigued with Fisherman's Harbor. So there's a number of things that we have built in that we can utilize and use. And Alicia, the kite surfing, I think it's really just a very small tip of the iceberg. And where we take that in the next 10 to 20 or 25 years, it's really up to the community and up to the people that drive it. And so we have many natural things, and it was neat for me to see it through somebody else's eyes, because I think when you live in the community, you tend to get a little jaded or a little basic. Yeah. We were at a meeting the other night, and somebody said, who the heck wants to see a sawmill and a fishing harbor? Well, I'll tell you, the people from the prairies, they don't see that every day. Yeah.
Now, question: how would you say locals? How do they benefit from tourism? Like, how is tourism measured in a community, and how does it hold its value as far as just being, a resident of the area?
So I'd like to jump in on that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you would.
It's your job.
One of the things that we noticed over the summer and right into late September were the number of no vacancy signs on our hotels and motels. And it persisted night after night after night after night. And there's a whole number of people who work in the accommodations industry, who work in restaurants, who work in shops, who work in gas stations, all of whom benefit from the tourism economy. We did a survey of visitors last year, and I was struck by the results. And in fact, I didn't believe the results at first, because it said that a huge percentage of our visitors had Port Alberni as their destination. And I'm thinking to myself, how can that be when we live between two tourism powerhouses, the West Coast and the East Coast? And in addition to that, their primary activity was shopping in the retail area. And however, when I started to think about that, what made sense is that there are, I think, a number of people who come to visit family, who come to visit friends, who increasingly are coming for experiences that the community offers. The Francis Barclay, the steam train ride, and the McLean Mill, and events that are being done. And so I began to see, well, there might actually be some truth to the survey.
Yeah.
Now, we need to do it again, because I believe tourism is evolving and changing, and I'm glad that we've got Trevor on the panel. Aboriginal tourism is the fastest growing tourism across the country. We heard that said by Destination BC and Tourism Vancouver Island. And then the other thing, and I know Ron wants to talk about this, is sport tourism. I still believe that one of the biggest contributors to our economy is sport tourism.
Now, Ron, what's your take on that?
I'm going to kind of give you a little vignette, if you will.
Okay.
And it's a life story, and it has to do with cultural tourism as well. And it's an experience I had with when we hosted the World Under 17 here. And on opening night, we had Team Pacific playing Team Russia. And we had a very significant First Nations involvement that night. We had First Nations dancers. They were cleansing the building. And one thing that my wife told me is, when you go to center ice and you're part of the ceremony, stop and look around and take in the moment. And there was a point where we had a number of drummers and singers on one of the benches. And I was standing there and I was looking around, and all of a sudden I looked over and I went, what's all that red in amongst the singers and dancers? And I looked closer, and it was all of the Russian coaches, managers, trainers in amongst the singers and dancers with their cameras.
Just being like, wow.
They could not get close enough. And you know what? I talked to their interpreter afterward, and he said, that's one of the experiences. When we came to Canada, that's one of the experiences that we wanted. And you know what? We're not there yet, but we need to get there, because it's a huge untapped cultural message that can be sent and a cultural resource. But that was something that hit me in the face with regards, and it came through sports tourism, but it was an experience, and it's kind of neat how they can mesh and be part of each other, and
be really educational too,
oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like educational, inspirational, and economically feasible, you know? So it's kind of, it's a win-win. So what's your take on that, Trevor? Really
That's a great point. I think there is a lot of benefit to First Nations playing host to events, not only sporting events, but other events that are in the community. I think sporting events is a great way of getting communities involved, especially First Nations. First Nations have a really passion for sports, and the one I thought about when we were talking about sports and events here, the old Alberni Athletic Hall, if it wasn't a potlatch, it was a basketball tournament. It was, constantly, if there was a place that First Nations could identify quite quickly with, would be the Athletic Hall. And so there's a natural bond with the First Nations in sports and participating. And I think it's a natural maybe progression right now that we're going through, that First Nations start to play that host part in events coming in, you know, and other people come in. I guess traditionally we've always done it with neighboring First Nations or First Nations that came in, and the change that's coming, and I think maybe the willingness from First Nations communities is to host everybody, you know, whether it be a sporting event, a music event, or an event just held in the community. It's that part playing that you know, everybody's a part of that community and contributing into it. And again, it is a win-win, because we have identified in our treaty, and I know for a lot of First Nations in treaty or going towards our treaty, the number one goal is language and culture. A lot of the economic stuff is just part of what we need to do right now, but for most part, the language and culture is really important to First Nations culture, and the more that you can practice it, or the more you can share it, the more I think opportunities that come out of that, because we're reclaiming and retaining culture, and at the same time you're sharing culture, and then now it's starting to become a part of the overall community.
Yeah.
I think an important point to remember here is First Nations culture is a big part of what makes this area unique and also interesting to people from around the world.
Yeah. With that at hand, we're going to cut to break, so stay tuned.
Hi, welcome back to Alberni Thrive. Today we're talking about the Alberni Valley's tourism potential.
Yes, definitely with tourism potential. I'd like to start talking a bit about a new campaign that was forefront by the city of Port Alberni and the economic development Pat here, which was I Get It, which, I mean, for me, I think that, I mean, my personal point of view on it is that it was totally brilliant, for sure, because we get it. Yeah, exactly. You know, oftentimes, you know, I'm like, I get it, because I can go out there and kiteboard and just what the area has to offer, like, we get it, and a lot of outsiders don't get it. So I thought that is really wonderful. So, but the question that comes into my mind, learning more about a bit about like Tofino area and their marketing strategy, basically with I Get It was funded by the city, right? Now in Tofino, the taxpayers don't pay anything as far as marketing. They've got a set organization that focuses on that, and they do that with a hotel tax, right? So my question to Ron and the city is, where are we with that? Or even Pat,
Yeah,
because it's an interesting point, right? Like,
we did have a hotel room tax in place. The accommodation industry decided not to renew the contract for
when was
it.
this? Like what year?
We're going back probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And things sat for a year, and then 4 of the properties decided to do a hotel fee. So there's provision for a fee that could be charged to their guests. And so they do collect funds which are invested in a whole number of campaigns, brochures in airports and on the ferries, ads in magazines, ads in TV. And the city basically works with Alberni Valley Tourism to fund those campaigns. So through their office and their provisions and their arrangements with Tourism Vancouver Island and Destination BC, the city gets a cut rate on contributing to all of those, including the billboards that are around. The I Get It campaign was funded by the city in whole. The Alberni Valley Tourism did offer to pay part of that campaign, and we are looking at the possibility of that. But the reason that the city funded it in total was because we wanted to leave it open to all properties to be able to benefit.
Yeah, so that right there, that's the point right there, though, in many
So-
ways, is that
yep.
is this core group of properties, are they dictating strictly for their property or for the actual whole of
No,
Alberni Valley and
Yeah, no,
tourism
they
area?
are promoting. I mean, their
Yeah.
billboard ad and the center ad in a tourism publication feature kiteboarding. And although their properties, so with the link to Alberni Valley Tourism, and although their properties are forefront on the Alberni Valley Tourism website, they also list all of the activities that one can do in the valley. And so, you know, they promote tourism, or sorry, kiteboarding, trails. So they're working, they've asked Valley of Trails if they could link to their website as well. So they are moving to promote events, promote activities, and they are on their website.
Well, I mean, I think that like we can all agree that there's some very good work going on with promoting what we can offer, but it seems to me that what needs to be done next is to have more of a participation from other hotels in the community, other businesses in the community. Do you think that that would be an accurate description of where we need to go next to progress the promotion of our tourism?
Absolutely. Council has asked me to host a meeting with all stakeholders that are interested in marketing the Alberni Valley. And it's been on my to-do list for a while, and we are arranging to have the meeting probably in November. And so we will be inviting all of the accommodations providers as well as other stakeholders that are marketing the community. And it includes Valley of Trails, it includes Heart of Vancouver Island, it includes Alberni Thrive, it includes the First Nations. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do.
There's definitely a need for partnership here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the observations that Alberni Valley Tourism has made is we're all doing our own thing.
Yeah.
And we're not working together. So you've got the attractions marketing themselves. You've got the city marketing Harbor Key and Victoria Key and the museum. And you've got other stakeholders marketing their interests. So.
And speaking of working together, Trevor, you were mentioning earlier about some really cool things that are happening with the First Nations in the area.
Yeah, for any person that sits on council with the New Toronto First Nations, you're automatically appointed to the NTC, I guess you could say, board. And there's annual AGMs, and some of the nice things I see coming out right now in regards to partnerships is NEDC, which is the New Toronto Economic Development Corporation, is a component of the New Toronto Tribal Council, is going to be holding a tourism conference. And there's some other initiative that has come down from NTC that Ken Watts has been working on that's really steering the nations from individually doing things to how can we do things together. And this is something that I think that's been said, you know, not only in Port Alberni but in West Coast First Nations as well, in regards to not competing with each other, but the understanding that promoting us as a whole is a lot, will provide us with more success than us trying to individually do it. And I think for a lot of things like the hotel tax, things that might have been maybe introduced a little early to maybe a little bit too early, but what we see now with the growth of tourism in Port Alberni, kind of the traffic starting to come back to Fino, is we're going to have an opportunity here to start providing programs like that, having more buy-in from maybe not even only tourism organizations, but organizations within the community, understanding the benefit is not only for the tourism sector, but for the community as a whole. And it just adds culture and richness to the community that, that Tofino benefits from right now
Yay.
because of that growth.
You know, it makes me so happy to hear this because I really do see huge opportunity. And what do they say? Rising tides float all boats. And so it's really awesome to hear that everyone working together and really making this place a destination that people can enjoy, that we get it. So
and further to what Trevor has said,
Yeah.
one of the observations of the tourism industry this summer was that more than any other year, they really felt that people were using Port Alberni as a hub.
yeah.
Using it for day trips out to Bamfield, out to Tofino, on the steam train, on the Lady Rose, and even over to the west coast of the island. So that was an exciting development. And one other thing that will come into play, we've received a Rural Diversification Fund grant to start educating our frontline providers, particularly along Johnson Road, but also along Redford. So we're going to take some time to work with the folks that are working in the gas stations, the folks that are working in the grocery stores, to talk more about our tourism product.
Very cool.
There's a wealth of untapped potential, I think, and I think that we can all agree on that. So I think we're about out of time.
Yeah, we're basically, if you guys want to do just a quick wrap up of, Ron, as far as tourism and the city's focus on it, just really quickly.
This is a whole different subject, and
Yeah.
we have run out of time.
Yeah,
we
it
could
seems
talk
like
a
we're
lot,
really fast.
but maybe we could do this again at another
Yeah,
time. But I think we need to talk a little bit about event tourism, things that are coming up, and things that happen in our community currently. Ball tournaments, the Fantastic Ball Tournament, Triconic Challenge, which is coming up next year. In the past we've hosted events like tall ships. Those things are huge economic generators, and you know what? We take it for granted. We take ball tournaments and hockey tournaments and stuff for granted, but they fill hotels. People spend money on meals, shopping. They leave money in our community, and that's a topic for another time.
And everyone benefits. I
Absolutely,
completely
and,
agree. So.
We need to talk about volunteerism and stuff with regards to
Oh,
event
volunteers are
tourism.
great in this
So
area. Oh my gosh,
it's a-
what a great community it really is.
It's a whole different conversation.
Yes, it's true. Well, thank you guys all so much for being on. Really appreciate it. And you at home, make sure to check out our website, www.albernithrive.com, and let us know what you thought of the show.